back to bury the body of old Blasphemous Bill Mackay, whenever, where, or whatsoever the manner of death he died. Whether he died by the light of day or under a peak-faced moon, in cabin dance hall or dive, in mucklucks or patent shoon, on velvet tundra virgin peak, by glacier drift or draw, in muskeg hollow or canyon gloom, by avalanche fang or claw, by battle, murder, sudden wealth, by pestilence, hooch, or lead, I'd swore on the book and I'd follow and look till I found my tuneless dead. For Bill was a dainty kind of cuss, you see, and his mind was sawed on a dinky patch of flowers and grass in some civilized boneyard lot, and where he died or how he died, it didn't seem to matter a damn, so long as he had a grave with frills and a tombstoned epigram. So I promised him, and he paid the price in good Chichaco coin, which that same I blown that very night down in the Tenderloin. Then I painted a 3-foot slab of pine, "Here lies poor Bill Mackay," and I hung it up on my cabin wall, and I waited for Bill to die. Well, years passed away, and at last one day a squaw with a story strange of a long deserted line of traps way back of the Bighorn Range, of a little hut by the Great Divide, and a white man stiff and still, lying there by his lonesome self, and, well, I figured it must be Bill. So I thought of the contract I'd made with him, and I took down from the shelf the swell black box with a silver plate he'd pick out for himself, and I packed it full of grub and hooch, and I slung it on my sleigh, and then I harnessed up my team of dogs and was off with the dawn of day. Say, you know what it's like in the Yukon wild when it's 69 below, and the ice worms wriggle their purple heads through the crust of the pale blue snow, and the pine trees crack like little guns in the silence of the wood, and icicles hang down like tusks under the parka hood, where the stovepipe smoke breaks sudden off and the sky is weirdly lit, and the careless feel of a bit of steel burns like red-hot spit. When the mercury's a frozen ball and the frost fiend stalks to kill, well, it was just like that the day that I set out to look for Bill. Oh, the awful hush that seemed to crush me down on every hand as I blundered blind with a trail to find through that blank and bitter land. Half dazed, half crazed in the winter wilds with his grim, heartbreaking woes and the ruthless strife for a grip on life that only the sourdough knows. North by the compass, north I pressed, river, peak, and plain. Past like a dream I slept to lose, then I woke to dream again. River, plain, and mighty peak, and who could stand unawed as their summits blazed? He could stand undazed at the foot of the throne of God. North I, north, through a land accursed, shunned by the scouring brutes, and all I heard was my own harsh words and the whine of the Malamutes. Till at last I came to a cabin squat that was built in the side of a hill. I burst in the door, and there on the floor, frozen to death, lay Bill. Ice, white ice like a winding sheet, sheathing each smoke-grimed walls. Ice in the stovepipe, ice in the bed, ice glimmering over all. Sparkling ice in the dead man's chest, and glittering ice in his hair, ice in his fingers, ice in his heart, ice in his glassy stare. Hard as a log and trussed out like a frog with his arms and legs outspread, I gazed at the coffin I'd brought for him, and I gazed at my gruesome dead. And at last I spoke. Well, Bill liked his joke, but still, gall darn his eyes, a man had ought to consider his mates when he goes and dies. Have you ever stood in the Arctic hut in the shadow of the pole with a little coffin just 6x3 and a grief you can't control? Have you ever sat by a frozen corpse that seem to look at you with a grin and say, you may try all day, but you'll never jam me in. You know? I'm not a man of the quitting kind, but I never felt so blue as I sat there gazing at that corpse and figuring what I'd do. Then I rose and I kicked off the husky dogs that were nosing round about, and I lit a roaring fire in the stove, and I started to thaw Bill out. Well, I thawed and thawed for 13 days, but it didn't do no good. His arms and legs stuck out like pegs, as if they was made of wood. Till at last I said, it ain't no use, he's froze too hard to thaw. He's obstinate and he won't lie straight, so... Well, I guess I gots to saw. So, I saws off poor Bill's arms and legs, and I laid him snug and straight in the little coffin he picked for hisself with a dinky silver plate. And I came nigh near to shedding a tear as I nailed him safely down, and I stowed him away on my Yukon sleigh, and I started back for town. So I buried him as the contract was, in a narrow grave and deep. And there he's waiting the great clean-up where the judgment sluice head sweeps. And I smoke my pipe and I meditate in the light of the midnight sun, and sometimes I wonder if them was the awful things I'd done. And I sit in the parson talks, expounding on the law, and I often think of poor old Bill and how hard he was to saw. How's that, okay?
Yeah, that's good.